Um, I like after a horrendously ugly, terrible, horrible loss like that, A.J. Brown is not worried. No, not too worried about this group. Of all the people to pick about who would be worried, I would have said A.J. Brown would be worried. Not worried. I'm worried because this feels so much like 2023, where the Eagles were not putting teams away. The Eagles were just finding ways to scratch and claw their way through to a victory. And we kept on saying throughout the year, they find a way to win. As I've said probably a billion times since that season, a team that just finds a way to win throughout a season and doesn't really control games, doesn't dictate, doesn't, impose their will upon the opponent, that team ain't winning. Look at the Eagles in 2023. Look at the Kansas City Chiefs last year. They just found ways to win throughout the season. And I even said going into that Super Bowl, the Chiefs, they might just have that day of reckoning coming where they can't find a way to win. And sure enough, that was the Super Bowl, and it was against the Philadelphia Eagles. But this team right now looks nothing like the team that we saw last year, and they look a hell of a lot like the team that we saw in 2023. A team that just looked like their day of reckoning was coming. The fact that this Eagles team can't get the run game going, the fact that this Eagles team can't make in-game adjustments, the fact that this Eagles team now has to go into another game here against the Chicago Bears Friday, because, what a great idea to keep shortening the weeks in the NFL. It's almost like all that stuff about player safety doesn't really matter all that much. Or, the quality and integrity of the play. But, whatever. But the Eagles now got to play a Chicago Bears team that is also 8-3 on the season. They've won 4 in a row, and they're coming into South Philadelphia for this matchup with the Eagles. And the Eagles might be without Reed Blankenship. The Eagles most likely out without Drew Makuba. So that's both your starting safeties. Yeah, not great. Not great. Oh, and that whole cornerback thing, with Adoree Jackson, he's concussed. So he might not be available for Friday. I know no one is going to be missing Adoree Jackson, and I'm certainly not going to celebrate a man getting hurt in any way, shape, or form. But you got slim pickings at the cornerback spot right now. And especially after yesterday, where it just seemed like at will, the Dallas Cowboys could put up, 20-yard runs or 40-yard passes. Yeah, you kind of want the best defensive players that you could possibly get out there. And again, I know it's slim pickings when it comes, no pun intended with George Pickens, when it comes to the cornerback position. A very, very frustrating 24 hours here with the Philadelphia Eagles, unfortunately. I break this game down to a couple things. Number one is the penalties. And when I say penalties, I don't just mean players making mistakes on the field. I mean, what are we coaching these? How are we coaching these guys? How are you coaching these guys? The fact that they come up with 14 penalties in this game. And yeah, some of them, sure, not great. Cam Jurgens with a little too quick of a head turn. I'm sorry. Can somebody tell me, like a 40 time, but can you tell me the time that a center has to turn their neck? Like, how much time do you have? That's too fast? Can it be gradual? What's the neck turn time that's allowed and appropriate at the NFL level for a center? I need to know that. So that was odd to me. The pass interference by Devontae Smith, I have no idea. You're right off the line of scrimmage. Both guys are in contact with one another. How is that on Devontae Smith? How is that pass interference? I don't know. But you had 14 penalties. You also had a gift because, look, we'll talk about the drive chart like this, for instance, with the Eagles. Take a look at the bottom there on the bottom right. Good Lord, what the hell happened there? But in the second touchdown, the Eagles got granted new life because they got gifted a penalty that shouldn't have been a penalty. The roughing the punter, the roughing the kicker situation there, where they actually did touch the football. So it would have been a legal play, a live play, but they missed it. And the Eagles got the benefit of that. And on that ensuing drive, they were able to get their second touchdown of the game. So, I'm not blaming the officials. I got questions. A.J. Brown and the false start, he does take ownership of that. The penalties just absolutely killed this team. And this is coming on the heels of Nick Sirianni not explaining well enough to Tyler Steen that what the offsides rules are in the NFL. So how are you coaching these players? How are you making these players disciplined? That's the first thing that jumps out to me about this game. Right after that, I know it's easy that when you have a lot of early success and you put up 21 points and you go touchdown, touchdown, touchdown in your first 3 possessions. I know it's easy to say, oh, well, they took the foot off the gas. Well, it looked like it to me. They certainly did. And Nick Sirianni said after the game, no, I didn't feel like we did that. Didn't feel like we took our foot off the gas at all. Well, then how would you explain it? Did you just get flat out pantsed in this game against Matt Eberflus? A guy that you and Kevin Patullo, supposedly know so well from your time in Indianapolis. Is that what it was? He just cracked the code on you guys. Hearing Landon Dickerson after the game, reading Landon Dickerson after the game, saying that, they went 5-man front. They gave us some looks in that regard that we weren't expecting, and we just didn't know what to do with it. It's like, really? Your heads were in a blender because of a 5-man front? Really? That's what did it? You're talking about a Pro Bowl center. You're talking about one of the highest paid guards in all of football. You're talking about Jordan Mailata, who was the highest rated football player in all of football last year, blah, 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 blah. And a 5-man front, they're like, oh, how do we handle this? Oh, no. Really? And you weren't prepared for it? You weren't coached up to, because they didn't put that on film yet? You didn't know what to do with all that? That's interesting. And when they did show you what they were doing in the game, you failed to make any adjustments on it? That was wild to me. Hearing Nick Sirianni after the game talk about adjustments that the Cowboys made, it was like 5-man front, anything else? Personnel? Personnel is the difference? Okay. All right. And you couldn't find a better way to execute plays. I will say this. A.J. Brown even admitted after the game that he's got to know what the snap count is. He said it wasn't a matter of hearing the snap count, because I think they're actually in silent count, but knowing what the snap count is. And obviously didn't. And that was a killer. I mean, you're talking about that drive. Eagles are actually driving the football in this particular instance here. They have a 1st and 10 from the Dallas 43. They get to they get it to the Dallas 43, excuse me. They had a 10-yard run by Saquon Barkley. I believe it was a 13-yard reception by Dallas Goedert. Then they try to run that same play to Dallas Goedert to the other side of the football field, and that's when Devontae Smith got called for the holding penalty. So you go from 1st and 10 from the Dallas 43 to 1st and 20 from the Eagles 47. Then you have 1st and 25 from the Eagles 42-yard line after the A.J. Brown false start. This is all in the same drive, by the way. And then, for whatever reason, Jalen Hurts throws short of the sticks on the 3rd and 12, where he gets a 7-yard gain to Dallas Goedert over the middle. Going back, I was like, Jalen, why the hell are you even throwing that ball? And then I realized everybody else is blanketed, and he's just trying to get something to happen, just get something going there, and at least get him in the field goal range. They end up missing the 56-yard field goal. Extremely frustrating to watch all this. But talk about penalties, talk about self-inflicted wounds. Listening to the guys in the locker room last night, one of the key phrases, the buzz phrases, the catchphrases, if you will, after this game was self-inflicted wounds. Well, yeah, penalties, fumbles, missed throws, missed opportunities throughout this game. And getting back to the idea of taking your foot off the gas, I understand how it's very easy to look at a game like this where you start out so hot and you really not even end. You go and score 21 points in the first, I believe it was 19 minutes of the game, and then nothing. And for the second consecutive game, you're held out of the end zone against the Dallas Cowboys, just like you were in week 1, where you only mustered 3 points in the second half. You muster 0 points in this second half. And a lot of the same things that we were talking about in that week 1 game, we're talking about now in week 12. So where does that leave us? Well, I'll tell you this. I still feel pretty confident in this Eagles defense if they can be healthy after Friday, that they can play an extremely high level. But I got to know who's available Friday. And right now, not looking great. But I have confidence that this defense will get back to a high level. The fact that this Eagles offense has played at best 3 quarters in a game this season, you could say 4 quarters against the Giants, 3 quarters against the Minnesota Vikings, because that second quarter, remember, they didn't get a touchdown in that quarter. That was the Jalix Hunt pick 6. This offense is left with no answers. And it feels like the same thing we're talking about. Lack of adjustments and not being able to run the football. Saquon Barkley after the game, I mentioned A.J. Brown saying he's not too worried about this group. I'll let you hear from him. I'll let you hear right now from Saquon Barkley, who, again, struggled in this game. The fumble. The other thing is, too, you look at the fumble from Saquon. The Eagles were able to keep the Cowboys off the board. That's where Aubrey missed the field goal, which just doesn't happen, a 51-yard field goal he missed. Then Xavier Gibson fumbles the punt. Why he even fielded that punt is beyond me. That is basic peewee football over his head. He's at the 2-yard line. Let it go, bro. Let that ball go into the end zone. The odds are heavily in favor that ball goes into the end zone. Eagles right after that, though, come up with the goal line stand. Or deep in the red zone stand, I should say. That was bonkers to me. Again, those are self-inflicted wounds. The buzz phrase after the game. But listening to these guys after the game, Saquon Barkley is just lost right now. Absolutely lost. And after the game, I mean, just how emotional this guy is, especially when he was asked about why the struggles continue.
I don't know. Defense are doing a really good job. I'm not playing well. Just got to play better. That's really it.
What changed after the 21-0 lead?
We made too many mistakes. As a whole, obviously I had a mistake there. They wanted a little more. So you got to give hats off to them.
2.2 yards per carry for Saquon Barkley. 2.2 yards per carry. They got him going in the passing game, or at least they tried to, especially in the early goings of this game. He actually ended up being targeted 8 times. He had 7 catches for 52 yards. He was averaging 7.4 yards per reception in this game. That's not what he's here for, but if you got to find a way to get him the football, get him the football. The fact that he ran the football 10 times in this game for 22 yards, not great. The fact that Tank Bigsby carried the football once for 8 yards and then never saw the football again, that's astonishing. You talk about trying to get the run game going. Well, one guy looked like he was getting it going, and coming into this game, he was averaging, 9.2 yards per carry, Tank Bigsby. I'm not saying that Saquon's cooked or he's done, but if something's working, maybe go to it again, especially if you really want to establish the run, especially if you don't want to abandon the running game, especially if your defense is just out there what seems like forever, and you want to give them a breather. Yeah, then maybe that's a good idea. I like what Seth said in the postgame. Seth Joyner said, the defense didn't even have time to taste the Gatorade. We got to go back out. Okay, good. That's what's happening with 3 and outs. It was baffling to me that Tank Bigsby came in again, got a nice run, and then he didn't see the football again. Astonishing. Absolutely astonishing. Now, back to Saquon Barkley and the struggles. This is what really stuck out to me. See if you hear this phrase. But this is Saquon on not being able to put teams away, as well as his own struggles again.
We got to do a better job of putting teams away, and we didn't do that, and I definitely didn't help. And usually, obviously last year and in other games, I was a big part of that, and it's been kind of non-existent this year. So I got to figure it out for the team, and I'm going to get it right.
Non-existent this year. Non-existent. I said going into this game that Saquon Barkley is still on pace for an 1,100-yard season. I would say that took a hit yesterday. Might be down to maybe still a 1,000-yard season, but when you play 17 games, it's not all that impressive to have a 1,000-yard season. Not what it used to be. 1,100, a little bit better. I did not think that Saquon was going to go out and have a year that he had last year. That just didn't make any sense to me. 482 touches. Just going by the touches theory. 482 total touches last year with the playoffs included. That's a lot of work. That's a heavy workload for any human. All right. Even someone who's not a mere mortal like myself, like Saquon Barkley. That's a lot. The offensive line has been terrible. Cam Jurgens just getting absolutely ducked under for a big hit, or almost a big hit on Jalen Hurts. Saquon Barkley actually stepped up and I think saved Jalen Hurts from a big hit. Seeing Tyler Steen get spun around, Jordan Mailata getting bull rushed, Fred Johnson come up with that hands to the face penalty. That was rough. That was rough to watch. All of it was on this offensive line. But time and time again, this offensive line has been a problem. And I know a lot of people are really angry with Kevin Patullo, and he's a problem. Don't get me wrong. But this offensive line is the most disappointing thing we have watched this season. You have an offensive line problem, you got an everything problem. And all the money that is in that offensive line and all that money that is around that offensive line, and Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown and Saquon Barkley and even Dallas Goedert getting $10 million guaranteed. And then obviously Jalen Hurts behind the line of scrimmage as well. That's not worth a whole lot of money if your offensive line isn't holding it down. And this year they are not holding it down. And this game was a perfect example of that, unfortunately. So where do they go from here? This Eagles team. Well, the first thing they got to do is figure out how to think on their feet. If the offensive line is continuously letting you down, especially in the run game, what adjustments are you going to make? What's the move? Unfortunately, you can't acquire health midseason. Unfortunately, you can't make some kind of dazzling trade. The one thing I did think about was actually on the defensive side of the football. I mean, we had talked a lot all off season about what's his name? Justin Simmons possibly coming in here and playing under Vic Fangio again. Maybe that happens now. Now that you're down 2 safeties, possibly. Can he? I said in the offseason, this is a guy you can plug in. You acquire him on Saturday. You can play Sunday. Well, now you got let's say you got today, Tuesday, or you got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, then Friday. All right, so he's got even more than one day to figure it out. I don't know. Jonathan Simmons, excuse me. So that's I don't know. That's where you look at the defensive side of things. But offensively, I don't know what the Eagles. They're down to Fred Johnson already at the right tackle position. Tyler Steen has been a huge disappointment. Even I really tried to give him some grace after the dominance that was Mekhi Becton last year. All right, well, he's not going to be Mekhi Becton, but, growing pains here. Yeah, no, he's just been not good. He hasn't been good. He hasn't been good. Cam Jurgens, I still think is phenomenally talented, but I don't think he's anything close to healthy. Landon Dickerson's had a down year. Again, I don't think he's anything close to 100% healthy. And Jordan Mailata just does not look like himself at all. And I will give him credit because after the game, he did say, Saquon's all down on himself and saying it's him. It's not him. It's us. And I do agree with Jordan Mailata in that assessment. Speaking of adjustments, again, Nick Sirianni after the game was asked about adjustments that the Cowboys made.
Yeah, they did a couple different things personnel-wise that they came out in to try to do some different things for the run game. They were giving us, I thought Jalen did a good job as far as, early in the game. They were giving us one thing when they played a certain coverage, then it changed, and they tried to take away some of the things that we were throwing to AJ. And Jalen did a good job on some of those, getting the ball down to Saquon in the flat. So just a little different variations of how they played the coverages from what I'm seeing, on the fly. Hats off to them. They did some good things there. We got the lead. They clawed back. They battled, and at the end of the day, we weren't good enough.
I hate it when another coach says hats off to them. Yeah, I understand the other side gets paid too and all that stuff, but you were left pantsed in this game. One other thing that really drove me crazy was that final play, final offensive play where Jalen Hurts got sacked. You go back and you look at that play. First off, It's a 3rd and 2. You want to know an indictment of coaching? As much as Saquon has struggled this year, he's got to be on the field. Saquon Barkley was not on the football field. I like Will Shipley, but I'm not putting Will Shipley out there on a 3rd and 2 with the game on the freaking line. And you have him lined up next to Jalen Hurts. I'm sorry here. The Eagles have this play, right? Called the tush push. I don't know if you guys heard of it. Some might refer to it as the brotherly shove. Some might refer to it as a quarterback sneak. Those people are boring. But anyway, you have Saquon Barkley off the football field with the game on the line. Okay, so then Tank Bigsby was out there? Oh, no. What are you, crazy? Why would you do that? Will Shipley's out there on the field with the game on the line. So right away, I'm thinking, this coaching sucks. Don't like this. Then they snap the ball with Jalen in the shotgun on the 3rd and 2. The only option that Jalen really has, judging from his progression. Now, I will say Will Shipley was an option here. You could have given the ball to Will Shipley. He was open in the flat. But Jalen's looking at AJ. It looked like his progression was AJ to Dallas. And by the time he got to Dallas, that pocket started to get a little tight on him. Now, as that's happening and Goddard is coming open over the middle, there's a little lane there for Jalen Hurts to scurry up the middle for potentially the first down. At the time that hole opens in the middle of the line of scrimmage, by the time that opens, Jalen would have had about a 7-yard run from where he was to get that first down. From where he was. Now, it was 3rd and 2, but he dropped back a little bit, around 5-6 yards. He would have had to get about 7 or 8 yards scurrying up the middle. From the way things played out on that looked like it would have been a little bit of a long shot, but Jalen's a pretty damn good athlete, and I think he could have made that happen. But the first thing that I look at is no Saquon on the field. Not even the idea that you could get a 3rd and 2 and make it a 4th and 1 tush push for the win type of thing. Seems a little ill-advised there by the Eagles coaching staff, to say the absolute least. Nick Sirianni was asked about getting the run game going as well and what the Dallas Cowboys did to stop them.
Yeah, you got to make sure that, again, I think some of the things that we did today was try to throw them out of it, because when you have 5 men on the run, obviously, then they're going to have one less guy there into the coverage. So I think we did some of those things, obviously not well enough.
I concur. This still, it baffles me, man. I go back to watching an Eagles offense really start to click in 2010. And I'm going to go back to this for one specific reason. Deshaun Jackson and Michael Vick, man, that just looked like that was something unstoppable. And then you started hearing after games where they started to come back down to earth. You started hearing after games what happened out there. And like, they went man. They went man. And I was like, they went man? Oh, my God. Are they the first defense in the history of humanity to go man? The Eagles are scoring 21 points in 19 minutes, and then all of a sudden, they had 5-man fronts. Oh, they had 5-man fronts. What kind of sorcery is that? A 5-man front? Oh, heavens to Betsy. We don't know what to do. They want a 5-man front, and we're just like, all right, putting my wrench down. I'm going home. Can't figure this one out. You know what I would have liked to have seen on that 3rd and 2? You know what I would like to see on that 3rd and 2? Hey, a little drag route. Can I get a drag route? Can I get something like that? Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, something of that nature. If you're going to run a play. You know what else I thought they were going to do? When I saw them line up with Shipley in the backfield on the 3rd and 2 there with Jalen Hurts, obviously, and Jalen in the shotgun, I went, oh, here comes another quarterback draw. They're going to go quarterback draw for the first down. All right. And then they didn't. Actually had a successful quarterback draw earlier in the game. Hurts called his own number for a touchdown. The offensive line is a problem. Coaching is a problem too. Now, last night, Chip Kelly got fired. Let me ask you this question. Who would you rather call plays for the Eagles for the rest of the season? Would you rather it be Kevin Patullo or would you rather it be Chip Kelly? Because Chip Kelly's available. If you had to choose between the two, I say this in jest. He's never coming back here. I'd rather Brian Dable call plays. Say that much. I'd rather Jalen Hurts just call plays. You want to talk about going rogue? I'd rather Jalen Hurts call the plays. Just forget it. Let's go back to the 70s, man. Terry Bradshaw. Let's party. That's what I'd rather see, but we won't see it, unfortunately. Speaking of Jalen Hurts, now this is one of the more interesting things I did hear from Jalen after the game. Jalen was asked about the adjustments. So real quick, let's go to this first. I said I was going to go to this a little bit bigger, and I'm going to go to it now. Philadelphia Eagles, touchdown, first 3 possessions. How about that? Okay. Punt, end of half. They got the ball right before the half. That was that. Punt, missed field goal, fumble, punt. And then I might be missing one with my banner right. No, I'm not. Okay, cool. This just looks like the wheels popping off the wagon, unfortunately, for the Philadelphia Eagles, obviously. So Jalen Hurts was asked about in-game adjustments. I don't know if I have the question in here, but the question was, so where do you feel like you're at with in-game adjustments?
It wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to win.
Where are you with in-game adjustments? Do you feel like that's an area that the offense needs to grow in from here to the end of the year?
Always room to grow in-game adjustments. It's just a matter of having confidence in what you do and what you're doing, and everybody being on the same page when we do it. You know, I think that's a great question, but in the game,
he goes on to just talk about what they could do. But that's a great question. When I hear that, you look inward at yourself. That's what Jalen goes on to say. You look at yourself. Jordan Mailata has said that. Saquon Barkley said that. A.J. Brown has said that. You look inward, right? When I hear that's a great question, that's something I'm hearing about coaching. That's what I get out of that is, yeah, it's a great question. I'd like to know that one because, I'd like to talk to our coaches about that. These coaches that are supposedly frustrated with me. Well, guess what? It's a two-way street, pal. That's what I got out of that. A.J. Brown, leave it to him after the game. He was asked about what happened from the first 21-point run to nothing the rest of the
first off, hats off to them. They definitely made adjustments. I think in the second half, it was just a little lack of execution.
What were the adjustments they made?
It just makes up a lot of things on defense. It kind of made it difficult. The D-line got going. It was just made it tough for us.
The lack of execution, how frustrating was that? And are you talking specifically about penalties and stuff?
I'm only talking about myself. I even had a false start. I got to be on the same page and hit a snap count and know the snap count, I should say. But it was just overall just self-inflicted wounds.
Self-inflicted wounds. There's the buzzword. But how about this? Of all people, A.J. Brown, not too worried.
Not too worried about his group. Not too worried about it. Obviously, it's things that we want to get better with, things that we're going to talk about and discuss. But overall, as a group, you're not worried about it because we got men in this room who wants to be better.
All right. Rest assured, everybody. Of all the people that I thought would be worried, of all the people that I thought would inspire worry amongst us, A.J. Brown's not worried. Not too worried, at least. Not too worried. Boy. Blankenship, Makuba, Adoree Jackson. I would say at the best questionable for this game Friday against a hot Bears team that seems to have figured it out. You're going to be able to correct penalties in this game. You're going to be able to not turn the football over. Xavier Gibson going to figure out how to, what you should do in a punt situation like that when you're backed up on your own 2-yard line. Is that what's going to? No? Okay. Great. Going to figure it out in the run game by Friday? Try to figure it out in 4 days. And this team looked so identical to the team that we saw in week 1. Week 1 to week 12, same storyline. This is horrifying. Everybody in the chat, I see you. I appreciate you. I see Mr. Tab saying, Patullo, Kelly, meh, give the cheerleaders a chance. Let's do it. Why isn't Dallas Goedert more involved? I don't know. I wish I did. I appreciate all you guys. I really do. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. By the way, don't forget about PHL Sports Nation, Philadelphia Sports Nation, enhancing your Philadelphia sports fan experience across all social media and blogs. That's phlsportsnation.com. Make sure you guys like and subscribe to the Farzy Show. I will be back with you guys later today, 10 o'clock. Locked on Sixers, Locked on 76ers. Keith Pompey and I break down the Sixers' loss to the Heat yesterday. No Farzy Show Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, unfortunately. But I will be back with you guys tomorrow morning. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Catch me on Fox 29 coming up later today, 7:45. See you later.